I think I didn't do anything wrong, just let an old friend help me when my husband was busy. But now I'm staring at divorce papers, my husband's signature cold and neat. I never thought sharing one moment would cost me my whole life. Before we dive deeper into this story, I have one small request. Please subscribe, drop a like, comment, and hit that hype button to boost this channel so more people can discover these incredible stories. The apartment felt different when Seth was around. Warmer, maybe. More alive. I watched him fix our leaky kitchen faucet while Ethan was stuck at another late project meeting, and I couldn't help but smile at how effortlessly he moved around our space. "There," Seth said, wiping his hands on a dish towel. "Good as new. Your husband should really learn to handle these things himself." I laughed, pouring him a glass of wine. Ethan's brilliant with spreadsheets, not so much with tools. I'm lucky to have a friend who actually knows what he's doing. When Ethan came home at nearly 10 p.m., he found us on the couch, sharing stories about our college days. Seth jumped up immediately, extending his hand. "Hey man, just helped Morwenna with that faucet issue. Should hold you for a while." Ethan's handshake was brief, his smile tight. "Thanks. I could have handled it this weekend." "Of course," Seth said, but I caught the slight smirk. "Well, I should head out. Morwenna, thanks for dinner." After Seth left, Ethan stood in the kitchen, testing the faucet. "How long was he here?" "A couple hours. Why?" I kept my voice light, casual. "He saved us a plumber's fee. It's just, he seems to be around a lot lately." I felt that familiar spark of irritation. "He's helping us, Ethan. When you're working 60-hour weeks, someone has to handle things around here. I work hard for this family. I know you do, and I'm grateful. But I'm also grateful for friends who step up when we need them." I moved closer, softening my voice. "You're being paranoid, honey. Seth and I are ancient history. We're just friends now." Ethan nodded slowly, but something in his eyes remained guarded. Over the next few days, I noticed him paying more attention to my phone, lingering when I was texting. It should have bothered me, but mostly I found it amusing. Ethan was many things, but he'd never been the jealous type. The breaking point came Thursday evening. I was responding to Seth's text about helping me move some furniture when I felt Ethan's presence behind me. "Who's that?" he asked quietly. I turned, phone in hand, and saw something I'd never seen before in my husband's face. Not anger, exactly. Something colder. "Seth. He's offering to help move Chloe's dresser this weekend." "I can move a dresser, Morwenna." "When? Between your Saturday conference call and Sunday's client presentation?" The words came out sharper than I intended. "Look, I appreciate that you want to handle everything, but accepting help doesn't make you less of a man." Ethan was quiet for a long moment. Then he said, "I'm not stupid." Something in his tone made my stomach flutter, but I laughed it off. "Of course you're not. You're the smartest man I know. You're just overthinking this." But as I watched him walk away, I wondered if maybe, just maybe, he suspected more than I'd given him credit for. The firehouse party wasn't supposed to happen. Seth had mentioned it casually, just a few guys celebrating Rodriguez's promotion, and somehow I found myself saying yes when he asked if I wanted to stop by after work. Just for an hour, I told myself. Ethan won't even notice. But one drink became 3, and 1 hour became the entire evening. The firefighters were funny, charming, full of stories that made me laugh until my sides hurt. For the first time in months, I felt like myself again. Not just Ethan's wife or Chloe's mother, but Morwenna. When I woke up on Seth's couch at 6 a.m., sunlight streaming through unfamiliar windows, panic hit me like cold water. "Morning, beautiful," Seth said from the kitchen, already dressed in his uniform. "Coffee? Oh God, what time is it? I have to get home." "Relax. I texted Ethan from your phone around midnight, said you were too tired to drive and would crash at your friend Lisa's place." I stared at him. "You did what?" "Covered for you. You're welcome." He handed me a mug, his fingers brushing mine. Though next time, maybe we should plan better. There wouldn't be a next time, I told myself as I hurried home. This was a mistake, a moment of weakness. But when I walked into our apartment, Ethan was sitting at the kitchen table with his laptop, and the normalcy of it almost made me cry with relief. "How was Lisa's?" he asked without looking up. "Fine, good. We talked too late. You know how it is." The lie came easily, smoothly. "Thanks for handling Chloe's morning routine." "She asked where Mommy was. And you told her I was at Lisa's, right?" Now he looked at me, and again I saw that strange new expression. Right. At work, I tried to focus, but my phone kept buzzing with texts from Seth. Nothing inappropriate, just friendly check-ins, but each message made me more nervous. By lunch, I'd convinced myself I was overreacting. Nothing had happened. I'd fallen asleep on a friend's couch. People did that all the time. But when my colleague Jennifer mentioned seeing my Instagram story from the firehouse, I felt my blood freeze. "Looks like you had fun last night," she said with a knowing smile. "That firefighter's pretty cute." I'd posted the photo without thinking, me and Seth and two other guys all laughing at something Rodriguez had said. It seemed innocent enough, just friends having fun. But now, looking at Jennifer's expression, I realized how it might look to someone else. "Just old friends," I said quickly. "College buddies." "Uh-huh." Jennifer's smile widened. "Lucky you." That evening, Ethan was quiet during dinner. Too quiet. Chloe, sensitive to moods like all 7-year-olds, kept glancing between us with worried eyes. "Daddy, are you sad?" she asked finally. "No, sweetheart, just thinking about work." But later, after Chloe was in bed, he turned to me with that same careful expression. "How was the firehouse?" My heart stopped. "What?" "Your Instagram story. You were at a firehouse with Seth." I forced a laugh. "Oh, that. Yeah, he invited me to stop by after work, just for a few minutes." "But you stayed at Lisa's." "I went to Lisa's after." "God, Ethan, why are you interrogating me? I had a few drinks with friends. Is that a crime?" "I'm not interrogating you. I'm trying to understand why you lied." "I didn't lie. I just simplified. You were already asleep when I got to Lisa's, and I didn't want to wake you with a long explanation." He studied my face for a long moment. Then he stood up, grabbing his jacket from the chair. "Where are you going?" I asked. "For a walk. I need to think." "Think about what?" But he was already gone, leaving me alone with the echo of my own defensiveness and the growing certainty that my carefully constructed story was starting to crumble. Janet Hale's Sunday dinners were a family tradition I'd grown to love over our 8 years of marriage. The whole family gathered around her massive dining room table, Ethan's parents, his brother Greg and his wife Sarah, sometimes a few cousins. It was warm, chaotic, filled with laughter and good-natured arguments about everything from politics to football. This Sunday felt different. Ethan had been distant all week, polite but cold, and I was determined to show everyone that we were fine. Better than fine. Happy. "Morwenna looks radiant," Miriam, my mother, said when she arrived with her famous apple pie. She'd driven down from Portland specifically for this dinner, which meant she'd heard something in my voice during our last phone call. "Marriage agrees with you, sweetheart." I hugged her tightly, grateful for the support. At least someone was on my side. The trouble started during appetizers. Janet, Ethan's mother, had always been fond of me, but today she seemed cooler, more observant. When I mentioned Seth helping with some household repairs, her eyebrows rose slightly. "Seth?" she asked. "Is that the firefighter from your college days?" "Yes, he's been incredibly helpful. Ethan's been so busy with work, and Seth has all these practical skills." I smiled at my husband. "I keep telling Ethan he should learn a thing or two from him." Greg laughed. "Sounds like a handy guy to have around." "Very handy," I agreed, then caught the look that passed between Janet and Ethan. "What? He's a friend. Friends help each other." Of course they do, Janet said carefully. It's just nice when husbands can handle things for their own families. I felt heat rise in my cheeks. Ethan handles plenty, but he can't be everywhere at once. No, Ethan said quietly. I can't. The conversation moved on, but I could feel the undercurrent of tension. During the main course, I decided to address it head-on, with humor. You should see how paranoid Ethan gets about Seth, I said, laughing. The other night, he practically interrogated me about having drinks with friends. I told him, honey, if I wanted to cheat, I'd pick someone with better hair. The table erupted in laughter, except for Ethan, who was staring at his plate, and Janet, whose smile looked forced. Men and their jealous streaks, Sarah added, nudging Greg. Remember when you thought I was flirting with that barista? That guy was definitely flirting with you, Greg protested, and the conversation shifted to other stories of marital jealousy. I felt triumphant. See, this was normal. Ethan was just being oversensitive. But after dinner, while everyone was having coffee in the living room, Ethan asked me to step outside. We need to talk, he said. The backyard was quiet, just the sound of distant traffic and Janet's wind chimes. Ethan stood with his hands in his pockets, looking older somehow. Are you still seeing Seth? He asked. The directness of it caught me off guard. Seeing him? Ethan, we've been through this. He's a friend. That's not what I asked. I don't like your tone. And I don't like feeling like an idiot in my own marriage. I stared at him. This wasn't the Ethan I knew. Patient, understanding, willing to talk through problems. This version was harder, more decisive. I can't live like this, I said finally, under constant suspicion. If you can't trust me, then maybe we have bigger problems than I thought. Maybe we do. The words hung between us like a challenge. I waited for him to back down, to apologize, to return to the gentle man who'd rather avoid conflict than face it. Instead, he just looked at me with those cold, assessing eyes. I'm going home, I said. When you're ready to have a rational conversation, let me know. I marched back into the house, made my excuses to the family, and drove home alone. In the rearview mirror, I could see Ethan still standing in his mother's backyard, and for the first time, I wondered if I'd pushed too far, but that was ridiculous. I was the wronged party here. I was the one being accused of crimes I hadn't committed, treated like a criminal for having friends. If Ethan couldn't handle that, it said more about him than it did about me, didn't it? Social media became my refuge. If Ethan wouldn't listen to reason, maybe the rest of the world would. I crafted my posts carefully, each one a small masterpiece of subtle messaging. Coffee with my girls this morning. Sometimes you need friends who actually listen without judgment. Blessed friendship, strong women. The likes and supportive comments poured in. Jennifer from work wrote, "Preach, sister." My college roommate added, "You deserve better than paranoia, babe." At the office, I found myself sharing more details about my situation with anyone who would listen. Not the whole truth, of course, but carefully edited versions that painted me as the long-suffering wife of an increasingly controlling husband. He actually went through my phone, I told the Monday morning coffee group, shaking my head sadly. 8 years of marriage, and he doesn't trust me to have male friends. It's honestly heartbreaking. That's emotional abuse, declared Marcus from accounting. My ex-wife did the same thing. Made me feel guilty for having any kind of social life. I wouldn't call it abuse, I said, though I filed the word away for future use. Ethan's just insecure. His work stress is making him paranoid about everything. The sympathy felt like warm honey. These people understood what Ethan couldn't, that I was the victim here, not the villain. But the real validation came from an unexpected source. Seth had been quiet since the firehouse night, respecting my request for space. Then, on Wednesday, he showed up at my office building during lunch. "Hey, stranger," he said, appearing beside me as I walked to the sandwich shop. Haven't heard from you lately. I've been dealing with some drama at home, I said, glancing around to see if any coworkers were watching. Several were, and I felt a little thrill at their curious stares. The husband giving you grief about our friendship? Something like that. Seth stopped walking and turned to face me. Morwenna, you know I respect your marriage, but you also deserve to have friends who support you. If Ethan can't handle that, maybe the problem isn't with us. It was exactly what I needed to hear. That evening, I posted a photo of Seth and me from college, both of us laughing at some long-forgotten joke. Some friendships are worth fighting for. Real friends don't ask you to choose between them and your family. They understand that you need both. Friendship, loyalty, no regrets. The post exploded. Dozens of likes, comments praising my strength and independence. Several people shared their own stories of controlling partners who'd tried to isolate them from friends. But the victory felt hollow when I came home to find Chloe sitting at the kitchen table, drawing with unusual intensity. "What are you making, sweetheart?" I asked, looking over her shoulder. The drawing showed 3 stick figures, 2 big ones and 1 small one. But instead of the usual happy family portraits, these figures stood far apart, with dark scribbles between them. "It's our family," Chloe said matter-of-factly. "But everyone's mad." My heart clenched. "Nobody's mad at you, baby." "I know. You and Daddy are mad at each other." Before I could respond, my phone rang. Janet's name appeared on the screen, and I almost didn't answer. But Chloe was watching, so I forced a smile. "Hi, Janet." "Morwenna." Her voice was crisp, businesslike. "I think we need to talk." "About what?" "About the way you're treating my son, and about those posts you've been making on social media." Heat flooded my face. "I don't know what you mean." "I mean the way you're publicly humiliating Ethan while playing victim. I may be old, but I'm not blind. That boy has loved you for 10 years. And this is how you repay him." "Janet, I think you're misunderstanding." "No, dear. I understand perfectly. The question is, do you?" The line went dead. I stared at the phone, shaking with anger and something else, something that felt uncomfortably like shame. But that was ridiculous. I was protecting myself, telling my side of the story. If Ethan didn't like how that made him look, maybe he should examine his own behavior. I was still telling myself that when I came home Thursday evening to find the apartment empty except for a business card on the kitchen table. Davidson and Associates Family Law, it read. And underneath, in Ethan's careful handwriting, "We need to talk." The law office smelled like leather and disappointment. I sat across from Ethan in the conference room, a mahogany table stretching between us like an ocean. He'd brought Greg for moral support. I'd come alone, confident that this was all just another one of Ethan's dramatic gestures. "Thank you for coming," said Ms. Davidson, a sharp-eyed woman in her 50s who looked like she'd seen every kind of marital disaster imaginable. "Mr. Hale has asked me to facilitate this conversation before we proceed with formal filings." "Formal filings?" I looked at Ethan incredulously. "You're actually serious about this divorce nonsense?" "It's not nonsense," Ethan said quietly. He looked different, older, more resolved. "And yes, I'm serious." Ms. Davidson opened a thick folder. "Mrs. Hale, your husband has presented substantial documentation regarding your relationship with Mr. Seth Morgan. Before we continue, I want to give you an opportunity to respond." "Documentation?" I laughed, but it sounded hollow even to me. "What kind of documentation?" Ethan reached into his briefcase and pulled out a stack of papers. "Text messages, for starters. 3 months' worth of conversations between you and Seth." My blood turned to ice as he began reading. "March 15th, 11:47 p.m. You to Seth. Ethan's working late again. Sometimes I wonder why I even bother waiting up." That's taken out of context. March 22nd, 2:33 a.m. Seth to you. "Can't sleep either? Want some company?" Your response? Always. We were just talking. April 3rd after the firehouse party. You to Seth. Last night was exactly what I needed. Thank you for reminding me who I used to be. Each message hit like a physical blow. Ethan's voice remained steady, professional, but I could see the pain in his eyes. There are 67 messages like this, he continued, all showing a pattern of emotional intimacy that goes far beyond friendship. You spied on me, I said, my voice rising. You violated my privacy. I protected my family, he replied, and I'm not done. More papers appeared. Bank statements showing cash withdrawals I'd forgotten about. Security footage timestamps from my apartment building showing Seth's visits, far more frequent than I'd admitted. Even my social media posts, printed out and highlighted, showing the progression from innocent friendship mentions to barely veiled attacks on Ethan's character. The Instagram post from April 20th, Ms. Davidson read. Some men just can't handle strong women with friends. Posted the same day you spent 6 hours at Mr. Morgan's apartment according to your phone's location data. How did you? Family plan, Ethan said simply. I've always been able to see your location. I just never thought I needed to check before. The room was spinning. This couldn't be happening. These were private moments, private thoughts, taken out of context and twisted into something ugly. You're destroying our family, I said desperately. Think about Chloe. She needs both her parents. She needs honest parents, Greg spoke for the first time. She needs to see that actions have consequences. This is about revenge, I accused Ethan. You can't handle that I have a life outside of this marriage, so you're punishing me. This is about respect, Ethan replied. Something you stopped showing me months ago. Ms. Davidson cleared her throat. Mrs. Hale, I need to inform you that Mr. Hale has already filed for divorce. He's also filed for primary custody of your daughter and has taken steps to protect the marital assets. What does that mean? It means the joint accounts are frozen, Ethan said. The apartment lease is in my name, and I've moved out as of this morning. I stared at him, finally understanding the magnitude of what was happening. This wasn't a threat or a negotiation. This was a done deal. You can't just take Chloe away from me, I whispered. I'm not taking her away, but I am protecting her from the chaos you've created. He stood up, gathering his papers. My lawyer will be in touch about visitation schedules and temporary support. Ethan, please. We can work this out. I'll stop seeing Seth. I'll delete my social media. Whatever you want. He paused at the door, and for a moment, I saw a flash of the old Ethan, the man who'd loved me unconditionally for so many years. The problem isn't Seth, he said softly. The problem is that you don't think you did anything wrong, and until that changes, there's nothing left to work out. The door closed behind them, leaving me alone with Ms. Davidson and the wreckage of my carefully constructed narrative. Mrs. Hale, the lawyer said gently, I'd strongly recommend you retain counsel of your own. This is going to be a complicated case. I nodded numbly, staring at the divorce papers with Ethan's signature, neat, decisive, final. For the first time in months, I had no words, no excuses, no way to spin this into someone else's fault. I was truly, completely alone. The family courthouse was smaller than I'd expected, less dramatic than the legal dramas on TV made it seem. Just fluorescent lights, worn carpet, and the weight of broken promises hanging in the air. I sat at the plaintiff's table with my lawyer, a young man named David Chen, who'd been the only attorney willing to take my case on short notice. Across the aisle, Ethan sat with his legal team, looking composed and professional in his navy suit. Remember, David whispered, focus on your role as a mother. Emphasize your bond with Chloe and your commitment to the family. I nodded, though my hands were shaking. In the gallery behind us, I could see the battle lines drawn clearly. Janet and Greg sat behind Ethan, their faces stern and disapproving. My mother, Miriam, sat behind me, occasionally shooting angry glares at my husband's family. "All rise," the bailiff announced. "The Honorable Judge Patricia Winters presiding." Judge Winters was a woman in her 60s with silver hair and sharp eyes that seemed to see everything. She reviewed the case files with methodical precision before looking up at both parties. "This is a petition for divorce with contested custody," she began. "Mr. Hale is seeking primary physical custody of the minor child, Chloe Hale, age 7. Mrs. Hale is contesting this arrangement. Mr. Davidson, you may present your case." Ethan's lawyer stood, and I felt my stomach drop as he began laying out the evidence, the text messages, the timeline of my relationship with Seth, the social media posts that now seemed so much more damaging in this sterile courtroom setting. "Your Honor, the evidence shows a clear pattern of deception, boundary violations, and emotional abandonment of both the marriage and the child. Mrs. Hale has prioritized her relationship with Mr. Morgan over her family responsibilities." "That's not true," I whispered, but David put a restraining hand on my arm. When it was my turn to testify, I tried to explain. I talked about Ethan's long work hours, his emotional distance, the loneliness I'd felt in our marriage. "Seth was just a friend," I insisted, "someone who listened when I needed support. If Ethan had been more present, more attentive to my needs, none of this would have happened." "Mrs. Hale," Judge Winters interrupted, "are you suggesting that your husband's work schedule justified your behavior?" "I'm saying that marriages are complicated. We both made mistakes." "What mistakes do you believe your husband made?" I looked at Ethan, hoping to see some softness, some sign of the man who'd once loved me. But his expression was neutral, professional. "He became cold," I said. "Controlling. He went through my phone, spied on me, made me feel like a prisoner in my own home." "When did this surveillance begin?" I hesitated. "I'm not sure exactly." "Mrs. Hale, according to the testimony and evidence presented, your husband only began monitoring your communications after discovering suspicious behavior. Is that correct?" Yes, but..." "And the social media posts where you publicly criticized your husband, when did those begin?" David objected, but I could see where this was going. Every answer made me look worse, more manipulative. The character witnesses were devastating. Ethan's co-workers testified about his dedication as a father, always leaving work early for Chloe's school events, talking proudly about his family. My own witnesses, my mother, a few friends from work, seemed to focus more on attacking Ethan than defending me. But the worst moment came when they played the recording. "Your Honor," Ethan's lawyer said, "we'd like to present Exhibit J, a voicemail Mrs. Hale left for Mr. Morgan on May 3rd after she learned about the divorce filing." My voice filled the courtroom, slurred with wine and raw with emotion. "Seth, it's me. Everything's falling apart. Ethan's trying to take Chloe away, and I don't know what to do. I keep thinking about that night at the firehouse, how good it felt to be wanted again. Maybe if we'd just been honest about what this was." I closed my eyes, remembering that night. I'd been drunk, devastated, calling everyone in my contacts looking for sympathy. I'd forgotten about leaving that message. "Mrs. Hale," Judge Winters said when the recording ended, "can you explain this voicemail?" I was upset. I'd been drinking. I didn't mean... "You mentioned that night at the firehouse and expressed regret about not being honest about what this was. What did you mean by that?" The courtroom was silent. Even my own lawyer looked defeated. "I don't remember," I whispered. "Your Honor," Ethan's lawyer continued, "we also have Mr. Morgan's response to that voicemail, where he explicitly states that he's not ready for that kind of drama and suggests Mrs. Hale figure out what she really wants." It was over. I could see it in the judge's face, in the way David was already shuffling through papers for the appeal process, in the quiet satisfaction on Janet's face. "Based on the evidence presented," Judge Winters said finally, I find that Mrs. Hale has demonstrated a pattern of deception, manipulation, and prioritizing her personal relationships over her child's stability. While I don't doubt her love for her daughter, love alone is not sufficient for primary custody. The gavel came down like a gunshot. Primary physical custody is awarded to Mr. Hale. Mrs. Hale will have supervised visitation every other weekend, pending completion of family counseling. The marital assets will be divided according to the prenuptial agreement, with Mr. Hale retaining the family home and primary financial responsibility for the child. I stared at the judge, unable to process what I was hearing. Supervised visitation? I was Chloe's mother. I'd carried her for 9 months, nursed her through every fever, read her bedtime stories every night. Your Honor, I said, standing up shakily, please, I made mistakes, but I'm still her mother. She needs me. Judge Winters looked at me with something that might have been pity. Mrs. Hale, your daughter needs stability, honesty, and parents who put her welfare above their own desires. When you can demonstrate those qualities consistently, we can revisit the custody arrangement. As the courtroom emptied, I sat alone at the plaintiff's table, staring at the legal documents that had just dismantled my entire life. Ethan paused beside me for a moment. I never wanted it to end this way, he said quietly. I looked up at him, this stranger who'd once promised to love me forever. Then why did you let it? Because you did this, Morwenna. Not me, not Seth, not anyone else. You. He walked away, and I was left with the echo of the gavel and the devastating realization that for the first time in months, someone had told me the absolute truth. I had lost everything, and I had no one to blame but myself. 3 months later, I sit in my studio apartment, looking at the supervised visitation schedule taped to my refrigerator. Chloe and I have 2 hours together this Saturday, with a court-appointed supervisor watching our every interaction. Seth stopped returning my calls weeks ago. Most of my friends have quietly distanced themselves as the truth about my behavior became impossible to ignore. I keep telling myself I was just trying to find happiness, that everyone deserves to feel wanted and appreciated. But in the quiet moments, when there's no one left to convince, I can finally hear the truth that everyone else saw so clearly. I destroyed my family for a fantasy, traded my daughter's stability for momentary validation, and lost the love of a good man because I convinced myself I deserved something more. The divorce papers are final now, Ethan's signature still neat and decisive, and I'm learning too late that some mistakes don't get second chances, they just get consequences. I said it was just one night with my ex. My husband made sure it was my last night at home. And maybe, just maybe, that's exactly what I deserved. Don't forget to hit like, subscribe, and turn on the bell so you don't miss the next story. Write in the comments from which city you are watching.